And so begins Rumours, one of the greatest rock/pop albums of all time. Certainly one of the most popular at sales over 40 million and counting. We just heard a little piece, of course, from Secondhand News, the track that opens the record. And what a great way to start the album. A catchy little thing like that would probably have been the lead single on most albums. But for these guys, it's almost an afterthought, not even one of the ones that people tend to talk about much. The inspiration for Secondhand News came from a very unlikely source, the 1975 Bee Gees hit Jive Talkin'. Now, that's not as weird as it seems when you think about it for a moment. Both songs have a similar bouncy groove, and both use that cool sort of scratch guitar in the intro. Now, before I get further into the musical analysis, and by the way, I'm going to go track by track through this thing, let's talk about some facts and figures regarding Rumours. It's Fleetwood Mac's 11th album, although only the second album to feature Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. It was released on February 4th, 1977, and produced by the band itself along with Ken Kylett and Richard Dashett. There were 4 singles released from this album: Go Your Own Way, Dreams, Don't Stop, and You Make Lovin' Fun, all of which made the top 10, and Dreams hit number 1, Fleetwood Mac's only number 1 single. That's kind of a mind blower. Doesn't it seem like they would have more? Rumours managed to achieve that elusive combination of massive commercial success alongside critical acclaim. It won Album of the Year at the 1978 Grammys, and to this day, it often lands in the top 10 whenever greatest albums of all time lists are compiled. But back to the music. The jaunty Secondhand News is immediately followed up by the ethereal Dreams. And before we leave Secondhand News altogether, while it's true the music is very upbeat, the lyrics immediately establish the dysfunctional love theme that pervades this entire album. I know there's nothing to say. Someone has taken my place. I'm just secondhand news. And Dreams picks right up on that theme. It's well documented that everyone in the band had just broken up with someone during the recording of this album. And this one is Stevie speaking directly to Lindsey. The overall message is, well, okay, you want your freedom, that's cool, but be careful what you wish for. It's only right that you should play the way you feel it, but listen carefully to the sound of your loneliness like a heartbeat drives you mad, in the stillness of remembering what you had and what you lost. By the way, we get Lindsey's side of the story a couple of tracks down the road. Stay tuned. Meanwhile, musically, Dreams is one of those songs that manages to be totally compelling with essentially 2 chords, although there's more going on than meets the eye under the surface. F major 7 and G. There's some ambiguity as to the mode here. I'm going to call this F Lydian. F major to G major is a classic Lydian progression. I suppose you could call it G Mixolydian if you look at the G chord as the tonal center, but again, I'm going F Lydian. The interesting thing is Stevie's vocal melody starts and ends and is very much centered on A, so that adds a little bit of ambiguity. The melody feels like A minor. Now here you go again, you say you want your freedom. It's just just beautiful. And what about that rhythm section? Mick Fleetwood on drums, John McVie on bass. I think Dreams is the first instance of that patented Fleetwood Mac rhythm that's been used on many songs associated with the group. Things like Sarah from the Tusk album. It's that classic boom, boom, boom groove. Very hypnotic. You can also hear it on Gypsy from the Mirage album. And even solo stuff. I heard Lindsey Buckingham's Trouble on the radio the other day. Same groove. Next up is Lindsey's Never Going Back Again, written after a brief fling with a woman from New England. It's about the illusion that once one has achieved a period of contentment in their life, that sadness will never come again. Sounds like wishful thinking to me. It's a great opportunity for Lindsey to show off his flashing finger picking, and it uses an interesting tuning that I've never seen elsewhere. The low E string goes all the way down to C, the fifth string goes all the way down to G, and then capo behind the sixth fret. Then we get the album's first Christine McVie composition, Don't Stop. And as is often the case with McVie, she injects a little bit of optimism into the proceedings with the song's simple message of perseverance and the belief that things will get better. Apparently, she had a little help from Lindsey in rounding out the lyrics on the verses. Those two always had a very close and special musical relationship, not a romantic one. I love the way they portion out the vocals. Lindsey sings the opening verse, and then Christine comes in for the next one. I don't think a lot of people even notice that it's two different singers, but it's a great effect. And as mentioned earlier, Lindsey now gets a chance to respond to Stevie with his track, Go Your Own Way. A great tune featuring a wailing and plaintive vocal. If I could, baby, I'd give you my world. How can I if you won't take it from me? And I love Tell Me Why. Everything turned around. Packing up, shacking up's all you want to do. Lindsey makes brilliant use of syncopation and suspended chords to give the song a chaotic, unsettled feel. You're constantly on the edge of your seat. Side 1 closes with what many consider to be the album's most starkly beautiful track. It's certainly the simplest arrangement, nothing more than Christine McVie singing her heart out at the piano. Now, this album was primarily recorded at the famous record plant in Sausalito, California, and that place was notorious for being small, cramped, and with loads of sound baffling on the walls. So to achieve a more ambient effect, the band went across the bay to Zellerbach Hall in Berkeley and had Christine record it there, which gives a great live feel.
For you, there'll be no more crying. For you.
Side 2 opens with a chain with its great sultry, swampy groove. It has the distinction of being the only tune on the album in which all 5 members receive songwriting credit, even Mick Fleetwood and John McVie, who are usually not songwriters. The song began life as a Christine McVie tune called Keep Me There, which was recorded in its entirety, and then the band proceeded to tweak and add various parts to. Lindsey Buckingham recycled a riff from an old Buckingham Nicks tune called Lola, My Love, and Stevie had written lyrics for a completely different song from which certain lines were pulled, most notably the refrain, "If you don't love me now, you will never love me again." That was, again, a reference to the Buckingham-Nicks relationship. Fleetwood and McVie concocted that great sped-up coda that starts with the John McVie bass line. You know the one I mean. Truly a group effort. Meanwhile, Dashit and Kylett pieced the whole thing together by chopping the tape up with a razor blade and splicing it back in the desired order. That actually wasn't an uncommon technique back in those days. Next up, we get Christine McVie's You Make Lovin' Fun. This was the fourth and final single released from the album. It's got a great bluesy feel, Christine on the clavinet and Hammond B3 organ this time. It also features some great tasteful guitar lines from Lindsey. I featured him on one of my underrated guitarist videos a while back. There's a tone he gets here and elsewhere that's unlike any I've ever heard, hard to describe. And you also get a good earful of the clavinet there in the background. Such a great sound. By the way, Christine and bassist John McVie had recently divorced before the recording of this album, and You Make Lovin' Fun was written for her new boyfriend, who happened to be the band's lighting director. And here's John McVie having to play bass on this thing. This record really was a rock and roll soap opera. The next track is I Don't Want to Know, a Stevie Nicks number, but with some input from Lindsey. This one goes way back to the Buckingham-Nicks days, around 1974, and they dusted it off for the Rumours album. Now, this is another one of these tunes on this record that I think easily could have been a single. In fact, it was a single in Japan, released in 1978, but I don't think it was released anywhere else. The band's stated goal going into the recording of this album was to create a no-filler product in which every song could potentially be a single. And I think they pretty much achieved that. So it surprises me that they stopped at 4 singles. I mean, that's a good number of singles for sure. But Michael Jackson, for example, released 7 singles from the Thriller album. And a blockbuster album like this, I think, could have easily done with 1 or 2 more. Like Secondhand News, which I mentioned was inspired by the Bee Gees, this one also has an unlikely inspiration. According to Lindsey and Stevie, they were going for a Buddy Holly sort of feel. And again, it's one of those that never would have occurred to me. But now that I'm aware, I can unhear it. It does have a simple 1-4-5 chord progression like Holly would do. I don't want to know the reason why love keeps right on walking on down the line. Okay, that was a pretty piss-poor Buddy Holly impression, but I think you get my point. Next, Christine McVie brings the mood way down with Oh Daddy, one of the few darker songs I think she ever contributed to Fleetwood Mac. Now, opinions differ as to who the song is about. Mick Fleetwood's nickname within the band was Daddy or the Big Daddy, so many conjecture that the song was about him on the occasion of his wife Jenny leaving him. But if you read the lyrics, it really sounds like Christine is speaking to her own lover. Oh, Daddy, you know you make me cry. How can you love me? I don't understand why. The song has a long and beautiful but somewhat spooky fade out. Some great little Moog synth lines from Christine at the end, which brings us to the album's final cut, Gold Dust Woman. So it's one thing to put a collection of great songs together, and Rumours certainly does that, but I've always been a big believer in the importance of sequencing on a great album, and Rumours does that too. I love what happens at the end here. From I Don't Want to Know on, this album takes a decidedly somber turn. The way Oh Daddy fades out, and Gold Dust Woman fades in, it's almost like they're different parts of the same track, although I think Gold Dust Woman has an even more sinister feel. I know this stuff is far less important today in an age when even people like myself, and I suspect many of you who grew up with vinyl records, now just pick and choose whatever songs we feel like listening to in the moment. There really was something special about listening to the album all the way through and letting the artist take you on a journey. Gold Dust Woman is a Stevie Nicks composition. It started off as a straight-up folk song, and the sinister vibe crept in over time. Lindsey Buckingham was quoted as saying, "It's an evil song, very dark, and I'm guessing the acrimony was directed at me." So very Rumours-like in that sense, but there's more at play here. According to Stevie, the song is actually about several things. It's definitely about drugs. The gold dust in the title is cocaine, which the band were just getting into around this time. It's about groupies. Stevie talked about women hanging around backstage, fawning all over the guys in the band and shooting dirty looks at her and Christine. According to Nicks, the line, "Rulers make bad lovers, better put your kingdom up for sale," was a reference to the newfound wealth she had obtained as a result of the band's success and her concern as to how that might affect her love life. And I have to say, I think that may have been very prescient. She seems to have never really been able to settle on a long-term partner over all these years. In fact, I think this entire lyric is very prescient. I see it as a warning about the dangers of the frantic and hedonistic rock and roll lifestyle. And in spite of Stevie's awareness of it, she was not able to avoid its pitfalls. In the coming years, she would fall deep into drug addiction, failed relationships, and what have you. So if anyone was looking for a happy ending, a positive spin at the end of this record, it was not going to happen. And on that note, I'm going to leave you all with a little piece from the tail end of Gold Dust Woman. Stevie Nicks wailing away, Lindsey Buckingham with some bluesy dobro licks, Mick Fleetwood of all people playing an electric harpsichord. It's all actually very chilling. Let me know what albums you guys would like me to do next. As always, thanks for watching to the end, and we'll talk soon.
How to pick up the pieces and go home.